Honestly, sometimes it felt like she was hitting the ball from the frame. Somehow magically the ball lands in the court and you kind of like on the back foot. And
Aryna Sabalenka could be facing the biggest punishment of her career right now, all because of what she said after losing to Coco Gauff at the French Open. Her post-match comments weren't just disrespectful or bad sportsmanship, they apparently went too far. The WTA is now said to be seriously considering major penalties that could completely change her career. Reports suggest possible suspensions, heavy fines, and other serious consequences. Sources close to the WTA say her remarks about Coco have led to several formal complaints. The tennis governing body is now investigating whether Sabalenka's comments violated conduct rules meant to protect players from disrespect and unsportsmanlike behavior. This isn't just online backlash anymore, it's become an official investigation. Sabalenka could face serious consequences, including an indefinite suspension from tournaments, loss of ranking points, or even a ban from certain competitions if the WTA decides her comments were severe enough. Tennis experts are stunned, since it's extremely rare for the organization to take disciplinary action over post-match remarks. But sources say what Sabalenka said went so far that the WTA had no choice but to act. Her legal team is reportedly in crisis mode, sponsors are rethinking their deals, and the entire tennis world is watching to see if one of its top players is about to face career-changing punishment for something she can't take back. If the WTA decides to make an example out of this situation, we could be witnessing a historic moment. A Grand Slam-level athlete losing everything not because of doping or cheating, but because of what she said about an opponent who beat her fair and square. It all started with those comments. American tennis star Coco Gauff dominated the French Open earlier this June, defeating Belarus's Aryna Sabalenka in what should have been one of the biggest wins of her career. The match went to 3 sets. Gauff dropped the first in a tight tie-break, but came roaring back to win the next 2 convincingly. It was a comeback that showed everything special about her game: resilience, adaptability, and unstoppable determination. The match itself had everything fans dream of in a Grand Slam final: powerful rallies, stunning shot-making, and an electric crowd that hung on every point. The tennis was top tier. Coco Gauff proved she could not only compete with the world's #1 player, but outlast her when it mattered most. That should have been the headline everyone talked about for weeks: Gauff's incredible victory and her rise to the top. But instead, the focus shifted completely after Sabalenka's post-match comments. During her press conference in front of cameras and reporters from around the world, Sabalenka said something that left people stunned. She basically claimed she only lost because Gauff made too many mistakes. Yes, really. She said the player who beat her only won because of mistakes, not because they actually played better tennis. That's like saying someone only scored a touchdown because you slipped, not because they outplayed you. Her exact words were something like, "Coco didn't win because she played amazing. She won because I made too many mistakes on easy balls." Think about how wild that is. You just lost a Grand Slam final, and instead of giving your opponent credit, you basically say you beat yourself. That's not just bad sportsmanship. It's rewriting reality to protect your ego. And the numbers make it even worse. Coco had 40 fewer unforced errors than Sabalenka in that match. 40. That's not a small gap. That's a clear sign of who really played smarter and cleaner tennis that day. So when Sabalenka tries to blame her loss on her own mistakes, she's completely ignoring the fact that Coco was the one playing smarter, cleaner tennis. Those weren't just random errors. Coco was the one forcing them. She kept Sabalenka under pressure, moving her around the court and making her uncomfortable from start to finish. Here's the thing about unforced errors in tennis. They don't just happen in isolation. When you're up against a player as fast, strategic, and composed as Coco Gauff, every shot has to be perfect. If you give her even a slightly weak ball, she'll make you pay for it. So yes, Sabalenka made mistakes, but Coco created the situations that led to them. That's what great players do. The reaction online was immediate and harsh. Fans and media outlets started calling Sabalenka out across social media, criticizing her for refusing to give Coco the credit she deserved. Tennis fans, sports commentators, and even people who don't normally follow tennis were all saying the same thing. This was incredibly disrespectful. Sabalenka got beaten fair and square, yet instead of giving credit where it was due, she made excuses. Former players also weighed in, and they didn't hold back. These are people who know exactly what it feels like to lose on a big stage and understand the emotions that come with it. But even they said Sabalenka crossed the line. When other professional athletes, who could easily sympathize with the pressure of that moment, call you out for poor sportsmanship, you know you've gone too far. They made it clear. There's simply no excuse for that kind of behavior. The tennis community has always valued respect and tradition. Sure, players get competitive and emotions run high, but there's an unspoken rule. You respect your opponent no matter what happens. What Sabalenka did broke that code in a way fans and players couldn't ignore. It wasn't just one careless comment, it was a direct insult to the spirit of fair competition that tennis stands for. And what made it worse was how she said it. If you watched the press conference, she wasn't shy or unsure. She said it with full confidence, as if she truly believed it. There was no apology, no humility, just pure arrogance in the moment. There was no moment of hesitation, no attempt to walk it back. Just pure disrespect delivered with total confidence. Then came the apology that no one believed. After getting dragged online for days, Sabalenka finally posted a statement on social media. She said that both things can be true, that she didn't play her best, and that Coco earned the title. On the surface, that sounds fair enough. But let's be honest. It doesn't erase what she said right after the match. That apology didn't come from genuine reflection. It came from backlash. And for most people, it felt hollow and performative. Simply put, her apology did nothing to fix the damage she caused. When someone only apologizes after massive backlash, it's not a real apology. It's damage control. That's your PR team stepping in and saying, "We need to fix this now before the sponsors start walking away." A genuine apology comes from realizing you were wrong, not from being pressured into it days later when your social media has turned into chaos. If Sabalenka had truly felt remorseful, she would have corrected herself right after the match, not 3 days later. Think about what a real apology would have sounded like. Something like, "I was emotional after the loss and misspoke. I didn't mean to take anything away from Coco's performance. She played an incredible match, and I respect her completely." That would have shown honesty and humility. Instead, what we got felt rehearsed, calculated, and too little, too late. That might have come across as at least somewhat sincere. But waiting until the backlash exploded? That's not remorse. That's pure damage control. And let's be honest about the timing. Sabalenka's apology dropped right when major sports outlets began covering her comments, right when social media had completely turned against her, and right when her sponsors were probably on emergency calls with her management team. That's not coincidence. That's strategy. It was a carefully timed PR move meant to stop the bleeding before it got worse. Even the apology itself felt weak. Instead of truly acknowledging Coco's performance, she made it about herself again, about how she didn't play her best, how she was frustrated, how it wasn't her day. It read more like an excuse than an apology. Even in her attempt to give Coco credit, Sabalenka couldn't help but make it about herself. Instead of just saying, "Coco played amazing tennis and deserved to win," she kept centering the conversation on her own performance. In her so-called apology, she talked about how she didn't play her best and how Coco handled the conditions better. But even that still frames things around excuses, weather, nerves, form, anything except admitting that Coco was simply the better player that day. A real apology would have been simple and sincere. Something like, "I spoke out of frustration and didn't give Coco the credit she deserved. She played incredible tennis and fully earned this championship." That's all she had to say. No excuses, no conditions, just respect where it's due. Exactly. That's all it needed to be. Something as simple as, I have nothing but respect for Coco as a player and competitor. Done. Crisis avoided. What's frustrating is that this entire mess could have been prevented with just a little humility. If Sabalenka had simply said, Coco played incredible tennis today and earned this win, the story would have ended there. Instead, she turned what should have been one of Coco's greatest moments into a controversy about her own attitude. And when she finally tried to clean it up with a half-hearted apology, it only made things worse, because everyone could tell it wasn't genuine. Then came the next wave, the media. If the backlash was already intense, the way the media handled it poured gasoline on the fire. Here's what really frustrated a lot of people about this whole situation. Coco Gauff absolutely dominated the French Open. From the very first round, it was clear she was the player to beat. She earned that trophy through skill, focus, and sheer determination. But instead of the media celebrating her incredible achievement, what happened? In almost every interview, the first couple of questions were about her win, and then immediately shifted to Sabalenka's comments. Over and over again. So instead of the spotlight staying on Coco's victory, the narrative turned into, what do you think about what Sabalenka said? Imagine how frustrating that must have been for Coco. You've just won one of the biggest titles in tennis, a moment players dream about, and instead of being fully celebrated, the headlines are all about someone else's bad attitude. You're only 21 years old, the first American woman to win the French Open since Serena Williams in 2015. And instead of getting to celebrate that, you're stuck answering questions about someone else's bad sportsmanship. But Coco handled it with absolute grace. In every interview where reporters brought up Sabalenka's comments, she stayed composed and respectful. She called Sabalenka a tough competitor, refused to engage in any negativity, and kept steering the conversation back to her own performance and what the victory meant to her. That kind of maturity at just 21 is incredible. Most players her age might have snapped back or shown frustration after being asked the same negative questions over and over. But Coco didn't take the bait. She rose above it. Meanwhile, the media really dropped the ball. They had so much great material to work with. Coco's journey, her growth, her dominance at the tournament. Yet they kept chasing drama instead of celebrating her achievement. She had this incredible story about manifestation, about believing in herself, pushing through doubt, and visualizing that win long before it happened. This French Open title meant something deeply personal to her. But instead of diving into that powerful narrative, the media went for the easy angle, drama and controversy, because that's what drives clicks. And this isn't just a tennis problem. It's something we see across all sports. The spotlight often shifts from the triumph to the tension. Instead of celebrating the athlete's hard work, focus, and success, the headlines get hijacked by someone else's bad behavior. It's frustrating when you think about how much these athletes sacrifice, the years of training, the pressure, the setbacks, all for that one dream moment. And then, when they finally achieve it, the story isn't about them. But here's the part that really shows who Coco is. Leading up to the tournament, she kept writing herself a note, the same simple, powerful words over and over again. It was her way of focusing her mind, manifesting belief, and staying grounded in the idea that she could win it all.